The Chicago Region Environmental and Transportation Efficiency Program, also known as the CREATE program, is a massive undertaking in the Chicago area. Starting in 2003, this program has aimed to rebuild and modernize the rail infrastructure in the region, which was nearly a century old at the time, and therefore was not able to support the ever-growing capacity and length of trains. This project is crucial for the American rail industry, given that around 25% of all freight trains in the United States pass through Chicago. However, since I am a passenger train buff instead of a freight train buff, I will mostly be discussing the benefits that the CREATE program will bring to passenger rail in Chicagoland. Hello, I'm the Southland Urbanist. I plan to make videos about urbanism and transportation, especially my experiences interacting with the built environment. If you like my content, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. Thanks! If you have taken trains before in America, you know that freight trains usually do not give right-of-way for passenger trains, despite a federal law requiring them to do so. As a result, commuters are often waiting a number of minutes or even hours for a 2-mile-long freight train to slowly pass through a diamond crossing, causing everybody to be late for work. The CREATE program plans to untangle this mess and inconsistency by creating flyovers and track realignments to separate freight and passenger trains, allowing fewer delays, more reliable schedules, and faster travel times for commuters. With that, let's start with the Inglewood flyover. This is the only passenger rail project in the CREATE program that has been completed in its entirety, with work finishing in May 2016. Before this flyover was completed, 78 Metro Rock Island trains had the risk of getting stuck at a diamond crossing near 63rd Street and the Dan Ryan Expressway, so that a mile-long Norfolk Southern train could slowly pass through. And so, after investing $140 million, a new bridge was built for the Rock Island line so that commuter trains can pass over Norfolk Southern's right-of-way without having to stop for freight trains. Likewise, Amtrak trains traveling to and from Michigan and the eastern U.S. no longer have to wait for Rock Island trains to pass with the completion of this new flyover. According to the CREATE program, the Inglewood flyover needed to be completed before the neighboring projects could. Otherwise, delays would have significantly increased at the diamond crossing. What I find interesting about this flyover is that an additional unused bridge was built alongside the bridge carrying the two Rock Island tracks. This extra bridge was likely built to accommodate for potential rerouting of the Amtrak Lincoln service and Texas Eagle so that they would not have to share the tracks with Canadian National trains on the existing Joliet subdivision line. It is unknown when this rerouting will occur, however. Next, we will be heading southwest of the Inglewood flyover to look at the 75th Street Corridor Improvement Project. As mentioned in the title of the project, this corridor aims to remove the bottlenecks along the 75th Street Railroad corridor between Western Avenue and Halsted Street. This is by far the most complex plan of the CREATE program, as this corridor is a converging point for Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, BRC, Metra, and Amtrak trains. The first project in this plan is the construction of the Forest Hill flyover, which will replace the existing diamond crossing that CSX makes with Norfolk Southern, BRC, and Metro Southwest service trains. This flyover is currently under construction and is anticipated to be complete by the end of this year, 2025, at an estimated cost of $380 million. East of the Forest Hill flyover, 30 Metra and 90 freight trains have to complete the arduous daily task of crossing over each other's paths at grade within the 2-mile corridor, since Metra trains from the southwest need to travel northeast and freight trains from the northwest need to travel southeast. Likewise, at this junction near 80th Street and Wallace Street, Norfolk Southern, BRC, Union Pacific, and Amtrak Cardinal trains all have to cross over each other's paths, making delays common along this corridor. The CREATE program, however, plans to reconfigure these tracks to eliminate the conflicting paths. Positive train control is also planned to be implemented on this corridor to reduce the risk of train collisions. The final design phase is expected to be complete by this year, and the estimated cost of the project is $1 billion. The final passenger proposal for the 75th Street corridor is to construct a new flyover connecting Southwest service trains to the Rock Island District. By connecting to the Rock Island District, Southwest service trains can travel at increased speeds due to Metra owning the infrastructure along the Rock Island line. This contrasts with Southwest Service's current route, which is owned almost entirely by Norfolk Southern. This realignment would reduce potential delays from freight trains, which the Metra line currently faces traveling along the shared Norfolk Southern track. Furthermore, the completion of the new flyover will allow Metra to move the terminus of Southwest service from Chicago Union Station to LaSalle Street Station. This would free up capacity in the southern concourse of Union Station to allow for increased Amtrak service in the future. The design phase is almost complete, and the estimated cost is $300 million. With the combination of improvement projects along the 75th Street corridor, the travel time for Metro Southwest service trains between Wrightwood and downtown Chicago will be reduced significantly. However, the overall completion date of these projects is unknown, so it may be a while before Southwest service commuters get to see these shorter travel times come into effect. The next projects I will be discussing have either not yet received funding for preliminary design or are currently on hold in their preliminary stages, meaning that the construction and ultimate completion of these projects may not happen for several years. At the Grand Crossing on 76th Street and the Chicago Skyway, the CREATE program plans to construct a new direct connection from the Norfolk Southern Line to the Canadian National and Metro Electric lines, which were formerly owned by the Illinois Central. Once completed, this connection would eliminate the need for the Amtrak Illini, Saluki, and City of New Orleans trains to perform the time-consuming backup into Chicago Union Station from Canadian National's Freeport subdivision, instead following the path of Amtrak's Michigan and East Coast services to the Grand Crossing and joining with Canadian National from there. The elimination of the backup would reduce travel times by approximately 10 to 15 minutes. 2 flyovers are proposed along Canadian National's aforementioned Joliet subdivision, which again is used by Amtrak Lincoln Service and Texas Eagle, as well as the horribly infrequent Metro Heritage Corridor. The first flyover is planned in Brighton Park near Western and Archer Avenues, which would eliminate at-grade crossings that passenger trains must make across 5 tracks owned by Norfolk Southern and CSX. These tracks are used by 55 freight trains each day. The second flyover is planned near Bedford Park, which would pass over the CSX Indiana Harbor Beltline, which 76 trains traverse daily. As is the case with other grade separation projects, these flyovers would eliminate the need for passenger trains to cross at-grade tracks owned by freight lines, as well as the risk of delays due to freight trains crossing at-grade junctions. This would in turn reduce travel times to and from Chicago and could possibly allow for increased service for Amtrak and the Heritage Corridor. Finally, a flyover is proposed for Southwest service trains at the Diamond Crossing with the CSX Indiana Harbor Beltline in Chicago Ridge, which would further reduce travel times to and from Chicago along this line. This project could also include a potential grade separation with Ridgeland Avenue, as well as the redevelopment of the nearby Chicago Ridge station. As a bonus, I included grade separation projects between roads and railroads along various metro lines. Belmont Road and the BNSF line in Downers Grove were grade separated by October 2012, which included a new and improved metro station. Roosevelt Road and the Union Pacific West line between West Chicago and Geneva were grade separated by July 2015, which included a reconstruction of the intersection with Couts Road. Along the same line, straddling Melrose Park and Bellwood, an overpass was built for 25th Avenue, completed in December 2016. Finally, although this is not a metro line, and it was previously separated, the South Shore line crossed over a grade separation project along Norfolk Southern at Brainerd and Torrance Avenue, which included the construction of a new truss bridge for the South Shore line. This was completed in July 2015. With the vast majority of railroad research, planning, and construction in the United States being dedicated for the transportation of goods rather than people, it feels like a breath of fresh air to have a major infrastructure overhaul in passenger trains. The CREATE program stands out not just by its scale, but by its projects not being dedicated exclusively for the benefit of freight trains. It acknowledges that passenger trains are just as important. Maybe the CREATE program's projects can be a blueprint for other cities to rethink the role of rail transportation and how it should not be reserved for freight. Imagine if transatlantic and transpacific airplanes exclusively transported cargo, forcing passengers to travel across each ocean by ship. This is essentially how America's railroad system has functioned for decades. I hope that, with the completion of these CREATE projects, the increased efficiency and reduced delays of Metro and Amtrak trains could encourage people and, more importantly, local governments to recognize the untapped potential of passenger rail. These are not just improvements to infrastructure, they are improvements to America's mobility, sustainability, and accessibility to transportation that would benefit the country for generations to come. I'm the Southland Urbanist. I'll see you next time.